Thanks for reading the Bible with me. Today we come to the crucifixion. We're working our way through the book of Luke, and we are reading Luke chapter 23, verses 26 to 43. Read with me. As they led him away, they seized Simon from Cyrene, who was on his way in from the country, and put the cross on him and made him carry it behind Jesus. A large number of people followed him, including women who mourned and wailed for him. Jesus turned to them and said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me. Weep for yourselves and for your children, for the time will come when you will say, 'Blessed are the barren women, the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed.' Then they will say to the mountains, 'Fall on us,' and to the hills, 'Cover us.' For if men do these things when the tree is green, what will happen when it's dry?" 2 other men, both criminals, were also led out with him to be executed. When they came to the place called the Skull, there they crucified him, along with the criminals, one on his right, the other on his left. Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And they divided up his clothes by casting lots. The people stood watching, and the rulers even sneered at him. They said, "He saved others. Let him save himself if he's the Christ of God, the chosen one." The soldiers also came up and mocked him. They offered him wine vinegar and said, "If you're the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was a written notice above him which read, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who hung there hurled insults at him. "Aren't you the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other criminal rebuked him. "Don't you fear God?" he said. "Since you're under the same sentence, we are punished justly we are getting what our deeds deserve, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." Jesus answered him, "I tell you the truth. Today you will be with me in paradise." And so begins a procession from Pilate's home in Jerusalem to a place outside the city known as the Skull, where crucifixions were sometimes carried out. Crucifixions were intended to be slow, painful, and humiliating. I'm told Roman executioners were very good at their job. Typically, the process would begin with a severe beating, which we've already seen happen to Jesus. The beating would leave him extremely depleted due to pain and blood loss. Prisoners often had to carry the cross on which they would be executed. At the place of execution, they'd be stretched out on their crosses on the ground. Their arms and feet would either be tied to the cross or have large spikes nailed through the bones of their wrists and ankles. The nails had to go through bony spots so there was enough density of flesh to support the weight of the victim. If you've ever hung by your arms for any length of time, you may have noticed that it's hard to breathe. To fill your lungs, you have to pull yourself up, but when there's nails through your wrists, that hurts a lot. And even when you hang from bindings, pulling yourself up is exhausting. The actual cause of death for most crucifixion victims was suffocation coupled with organ failure. The victim's body would gradually be starved of oxygen, causing multiple organ failures and massive fluid buildup in and around the heart and lungs. If you're medically inclined or just curious, I've linked in my blog to a simple but academic website article that provides more information. It's more than a little fascinating to notice how many of the old messianic prophecies actually describe various aspects of death by crucifixion. Although the religious leaders of the day didn't see it coming, the scriptures clearly did. For the purposes of understanding this account of the crucifixion, you only really need to know it was horrific, it was humiliating, and it was slow. Luke tells us that a man named Simon, who appears to have been randomly passing by, was forced into the procession to carry Jesus' cross. Presumably, Jesus was too weak from the beating. Word of Jesus' covert arrest had gotten out, and crowds were again gathering. Among those following him were several women, mourning and wailing. Even now, in the midst of this death march, his heart is burdened for Jerusalem and the people he loves. He warns the weeping women that a day of terrible destruction is coming, one that will make them wish they never had kids who would have to live through it. He quotes an earlier prophecy when he says, "It will be such a time of suffering that people will wish the mountains would crush them and end their agony." His comment about the green and dry trees suggests that if people could do evil things in that moment when there was relative peace and prosperity, they would be infinitely more vile when Jerusalem came under attack and there was scarcity and suffering all around. Now, Jesus has never been an average guy. I know this, but he still surprises me. I feel like there comes a point where the only person you can really think about is yourself. Physically and emotionally, Jesus is in some of the worst kind of pain a person can experience, and he's concerned about the people around him. It's not just the women who are following him either. That would at least make sense, but no, he looks at his executioners who've stripped him, who are basically playing poker on their lunch break to see who keeps his outfit, and he prays that God would forgive them for what they're doing. I mean, why? What kind of person is concerned for the people who are killing him? And look at this gathered crowd. For the average passerby, this is the proverbial train wreck. They don't want to see it, but they can't look away. The religious leaders are there too. They were up all night, but they aren't missing this part. They've won, and now they're enjoying their victory. They mock him. For some reason, they find joy in the fact that the one who helped so many can't seem to help himself. They decide that's proof enough that he isn't their Messiah. The soldiers who, while nailing him to the cross, had placed a sign above him that announced to onlookers that Jesus was King of the Jews, take delight in the defenselessness of this would-be king. Even one of the prisoners who was being crucified alongside him takes the opportunity to mock him. In the midst of all this hateful ugliness, we hear a contrasting voice. Ironically, it's not from one of the religious or political authorities who should have spoken up. It's one of the criminals. Apparently, he had heard enough about Jesus to know that he didn't deserve the abuse. He also seemed to understand that he and the other prisoner had earned their punishment. While everyone else mocked the man they believed would never be king, the criminal dying beside him asked Jesus to remember him when he came into his kingdom. Somebody there understood who Jesus was. The man on the cross beside Jesus knew that he was the innocent Son of God, but I don't think even he expected Jesus' response. In the words of the condemned man dying beside him, Jesus recognized faith. He heard repentance, an acknowledgement that he had done wrong, and he heard belief. The man believed that Jesus was who he claimed to be, and that was enough. In no uncertain terms, Jesus promises him that he won't have to remember him in his kingdom because he'll be there. In the middle of this absolutely hideous scene, this suffering, dying Jesus speaks with confidence and extends grace and hope. I want to say, who is this guy? But we already know. A dying criminal just told us.